everyone. I'm Alexis Williams, and to my left, I have the honor of co-hosting Caregiver Convo with Reverend Odell Cleveland. Hello, Reverend Odell.
Well, Alexis, it's always nice to be on Caregiver Convo, the show who cares for the caregiver. As we know, and you know, first I want to say just thank you for continuing to join us. And we know as caregivers that just something to make you laugh, something to make your day a little bit more easier because, Alexis is like me in this warm-up suit. It's like being a caregiver is like running the hurdles. You run, you go and you run, and you jump over a hurdle and then you kind of get your steps together, another hurdle. But as a caregiver, a lot of times we don't know the hurdles that's coming up.
No, we have no idea what the hurdles are. As a general rule, I think that is what caregiving is all about, is being resilient, being able to go with the flow, being able to jump over hurdles. But it's not always hurdles because hurdles are the same thing one after the other, in shape. So maybe we need to think about it that it's a hurdle, but then there's a mountain, then there's, a swimming pool or something. Wow. There's always something different you're having to jump through and figure out.
Well, and it's not like we're complaining because we're not complaining. We're just talking the facts. And until someone's been a caregiver and really understand the essence of being a caregiver, it makes all the difference in the world. One of the things that we talk about a lot, Alexis, is this whole quote that I put in my book. It says, as someone with an ailing mother, I often wonder how I'll feel when my time as a caregiver ends. Will I feel relieved when it's all over? And will I feel guilty for feeling relieved? As caregivers, we could think that, but Alexis, today we're going to do a little different spin on it. Instead of as a caregiver when the time is over, how are we prepared when our time is over? How are we going to dive into that today?
So I was thinking about this because I've had some family events that have caused me to think about death and think about my own end-of-life experiences. And I brought our trusty whiteboard today just because I need to keep you on track. We have those issues
Yes.
sometimes.
We all know how we have those issues. We know that Odell failed the 3rd and the 4th grade, but God wasn't through with me yet. So now here we are.
So we're going to jump right in.
Yes.
So my first question to you today, and I'll give you like 5 seconds to think about it after I ask it. What are your expectations for your body when you pass away? Meaning that if you're not here to tell somebody what you want to have happen,
yes,
hopefully you will have had a conversation with someone about that.
Yes.
And they'll know what you want to have happen.
Yes.
Okay, but you say yes adamantly.
Yes.
But most of the people that I deal with, they have not addressed that with their loved ones. Sometimes it's a very tricky topic. It's uncomfortable. People don't want to talk about dying. They don't want to make decisions about the future like that. What do you think about my question?
I think it's an excellent question, and it's one that I've engaged with my family for the last 20 some odd years about myself, because as a pastor, we've seen it time and time again when Big Mama goes to heaven or something happened, the family's like, oh Lord, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And so experiencing that very early in my ministry, I always wanted to make sure my family understood. And I remember when we would go to Myrtle Beach, the kids were little in the back of the expedition, and we would go and we would talk about it, and they didn't want to hear about it. My wife didn't want to hear about it, my kids didn't want to, but over the last 20 some odd years, they understand it, and to the point now, me and my wife talk about it freely. When Odell Cleveland's body is here, and Odell's in heaven, I want my body to be returned to Charleston, South Carolina, in those areas, and I want to be buried in Charleston.
Okay.
I don't want to be cremated. Okay. None of that. I want to be buried in Charleston, and I would like to be buried in a nice business suit with a red tie on.
Have you picked out your suit?
Nope.
Nope. You're going to let them do that?
Yeah, I'll let Bev do that. That's it.
Okay. So on the topic of where you want to go.
Yes.
How did your family receive that when you talk about it? Are they okay about it?
Yeah, they're fine. Everybody know I'm a Charlestonian for life, meaning that for Charleston, and salt water runs through my veins. They know that. I told them that. And the key is, me and Bev laugh sometimes. So it's like, okay, if I die and I get buried in Charleston and you get remarried, are you going to say you want to be married by me, or buried by me, or buried by your new husband? And she just laughed and said, nah, I'm never going to get me married again because I can't train another one.
Oh, wow. You set me up right
Well,
there,
no, I'm
didn't
just
you?
saying we talk about it, and this is how we kind of talk about it and laugh about it, because you're right. It's such a touchy subject that no one wants to talk about, but it's real.
Okay, but I didn't say what's going to happen after you're gone and what she's going to be
Okay,
doing. Let's
okay,
talk about
okay.
what happens when you pass.
Okay, gotcha.
So what I've experienced is that people don't get that far in conversation. That sometimes it's like, well, if I talk to my kids about this subject, they may think I am going to pick one over the other. Like I'm going to say, hey, yes, I want to be cremated, and then I want my remains to go here, and then yes, I want you to get this amount of money or not that amount of money, or my stuff. You know how you talk about stuff?
Oh, yeah.
It means that that's going to lead into that topic. So do you ever think about what we can do to help people have these kind of conversations? Like, I think because you're in ministry, you see people pass probably more readily than others. You probably attended more funerals than most.
Yes, than most.
So I think you might be more comfortable with dying.
I think my personality lends itself to talk about death, and the fact that as a young pastor, as a young minister, I cut my teeth as a chaplain at Moses Cone Hospital. So I was a volunteer chaplain, and I remember going into the rooms with families when family members had passed, and I knew that their family member passed, but the doctors would call them all in, and as a chaplain, we couldn't pronounce by law. We can't say such person has passed. A doctor had to come in, and a lot of doctors would come in and tell the family and then turn around and walk back out, leaving the chaplain in there. And I've seen family members box holes in the sheetrock in the little family room.
Wow.
People react so differently to death, especially unexpected death. That, okay, Odell went out to go to Harris Teeter to get a loaf of bread. Odell got in an accident. Odell then come home. Well, wait a minute. That's not planned. All that kind of stuff. Not that people plan death, but I think it's different when you sit and said, okay, at X amount of years in my old age, what do I want to happen? That's good, but sometimes people don't even have life insurance.
Okay, we'll get to that in just 1 second.
Okay.
So my second question on this topic.
Did I answer the first one?
No, so I'm helping you. We're going to go
Okay,
back
so
to
I
this.
didn't, okay.
So
okay.
what are your expectations for your body when you pass away? So you said you're going to pass away and you want your body to go to Charleston. And
South Carolina, not Charleston, West Virginia.
Big difference, okay.
Yes.
And then you're going to be embalmed?
Oh, well, yeah, I just
you
assumed
always talk
I was
about
going
like
to
your
get a...
heritage and stuff like that. Are there
Yeah.
special things culturally that you want to have happen to your body?
No,
or
black
stuff
people
like
get embalmed. Do we get embalmed? We good?
I didn't just mean black people. I meant in general, like
South Carolinians?
Yeah, like some people, like I don't know, they don't always get embalmed.
I
Some
never
people
knew that.
have organic wishes versus non-organic wishes.
Okay,
like
well, now I'm
a
not.
green,
I ain't
a
that
green
deep.
death. Have you ever
Okay,
heard about a green death?
nah, I'm not into all
Okay.
that now.
Okay, just checking. All right,
Yes.
so, but what if you don't like to talk about this? Should we could we give some suggestions to people that if they're not interested in saying, hey, John, if this happens to me, this is what I want to have happen. Can you think of anything maybe that they could do to not have that conflict or have that conversation that seems to be too challenging? What would you tell them to think about and do?
I think what I would say is meet people where they are. As we all know, someone's going to be left in charge, or someone needs to be left in charge. No one wants to say that Odell is the power of attorney, because if Odell is selected as the healthcare power of attorney or what have you, that means that my brothers and sisters weren't selected. So you have to be very careful. However, the parents or that person know who they're going to leave in charge. Now they can say, well, my mother said, I'm the healthcare power of attorney. So my mother said, okay, I didn't select you, the attorney did. And I'm looking at her and saying, Mommy, no way, I know you. There's no way you would allow somebody to do something. So immediately I had to go try to fix it with my brothers and sisters. Not that anything was wrong.
Right, okay.
But you still have to have that. And the fact that someone needs to be in charge to make these decisions.
Yeah. So one of my suggestions is just to at least write your wishes down. That you would say, for example, if you do pass away, you do want to be cremated, you don't want to be cremated. I mean, at least write it down as to what your wishes are, and then I say date it, put it where you were when you wrote it down, the date, and then maybe give it to 3 people.
Why 3?
I don't know, 3 seemed like a good number. Maybe that's a family member, maybe that's a dear friend, and then if you have somebody who perhaps is in a church or maybe a business colleague or somebody who could say, hey, a trusted friend. These are my desires and my wishes. It's just too hard for me to talk about it with my family. I need somebody. I need for somebody else to know.
Well, how about it's too hard to talk to me about my family? How about it's too hard for me to even talk about it myself with myself? What do you do with that?
I think you break it down to like 3 points. Okay. And you say, I'm not going to live forever. Okay. Something's probably going to happen. And then maybe just say, if I'm not here, what like the first thought that comes to your head, what do you want to have happen?
Right.
But then we can talk so like utopically about all this, like, in the real world we all communicate. And so, we might make these decisions, but then my second question is, who and how will you pay for whatever your desires are? So that goes back to, you said life insurance, but not everybody has life insurance. So is the expectation that you're going to be responsible for your own end of life events, or are you expecting the family to do that? And I think people differ on that subject.
I think so. We've had family members, without trying to get too deep in this, where someone died accidentally or just died, and they said, such a person would know what to do. And we were such a person. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden it's like, okay, we have no idea what they're talking about. However, you do know that in our family, not that we don't believe in cremation. That's not what I'm saying. We don't cremate, we bury people. Well, when you bury someone, you're looking at $10, $12, maybe $15,000, which is a lot of money. Now, I don't believe in putting money in the ground, but one of the customs, you talk about custom and traditions, one of the customs of Southern Black people is this. People come to you and say, boy, y'all sure did a good job. Y'all put y'all mama away good. You put your daddy away good. You put this person away good, but ain't nobody paying for that.
Right.
So if there's no way to pay for it, then you just go in debt and pay for it. Now, I thank God that part of me being the man that I am, life insurance was a part of the discussion ever since we got married. Me and my wife got married at the age of 25. Well, that's a big deal. And my son, as he's got his family, life insurance was a part of the discussion, saying, hey, I know you're young, I know you're going to live forever, but if something happens, you need to go ahead and get life insurance. And that's part of it. People don't want to talk about life insurance because I've had people say, I ain't leaving nobody nothing. Nobody left me nothing, so I'm not leaving anyone else anything. And that's horrible in my opinion. However, I'm not trying to be judgmental. In Odell's opinion, I think it's horrible to have that kind of a mindset.
Well, but I have had some families that I know of that are sort of, let's say, insurance skeptical. And so maybe what you think about is you decide you keep using the amount $10,000. So maybe what you try to work towards is $10,000 in the bank that is earmarked towards, if this happens to me, use this money for this. I think in my mind, you hope that money doesn't get dispersed and spent on something else. Uh-huh. But I do think probably the bigger thing on this topic is that you're saying, I am in fact going to pass away one day.
Yes.
It's going to happen.
Yes.
Second, it costs money to pass away. I always say it costs money to live, and it also costs money to pass away most of the time. It's not free. We don't live in a country that takes care of it for you and then puts you wherever you want to go. It falls on somebody to be responsible for that.
I agree.
So on my last thing is 3 sentences that help with the above topic. So what I've learned is sometimes people need like a sentence or a role-playing opportunity or kind of a scenario in their head that they say, blah, 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 blah. And so my thinking was the holidays are coming up. Mm-hmm. Holidays bring families together. You might be sitting around with some cousins, some friends. And so I always say, throw Alexis, under the bus. Say,
Okay.
I was watching the other day on this show and they were talking about end of life and it made me think about it. Mama, daddy, brother, have you all thought about what you want to have happen when you pass away? So maybe it's not, hey, I want to take action on something I think we need to,
Right.
but it's an intro into the subject that might be true or may not be true, but it kind of helps. It's a good segue about the topic. Can you think of a sentence or think of a scenario where you just don't come in and go, hey, we're going to talk about dying today?
No. I I think that might mess up a couple things can mess up the Thanksgiving meal. Talking about politics.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That'd mess it up. Talking about what football team, that'd mess it up.
Yeah.
And talking about, hey, we're going to talk about dying today, mess it up. I think the scenario should be, I was looking at this TV show the other day called Caregiver Combo with the good-looking black guy on there.
I did ask for this.
And Alexis. And because of that,
gosh.
the question came up, who's going to pay for it? Because in the black community, not all black people, so I'm not trying to be biased or stereotypical, but a lot of times it's the person in the family who can afford to pay for it, pays for it, if there's no life insurance there. Because in a lot of cases, it's like, okay, you got it. And it's like, I'll put something on it, but you got it, because the funeral home is not going to do anything until somebody signs their name to that, to be obligated to who's going to pay them and who's going to allow their loved one to lay there, and a funeral arrangement's not being made because no one's ponying up to the bar, for lack of a better term, to pay for it. So it's not going to be fair. Very rarely is it fair on who's going to pay for mom, dad, the loved one. A lot of times it's who's going to get stuck with paying for mom, dad, the loved one. So that's hard.
Yeah,
that's hard.
that's really hard.
That would mess up the wishbone for chicken on turkey. The turkey wishbone. Did y'all have the thing where y'all went through the
Yes.
giblet gravy?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm not my favorite though.
You don't like giblet gravy?
I like the cornbread and then the true like mushy gravy.
Mushy gravy. Okay. How about stuffing?
I do stuffing
So you stuff a turkey?
occasionally.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't wring the turkey's neck and drop it in the fryer and do all that kind of stuff, but I do.
But you do?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Well,
I have wrung a chicken's neck before too, by the way. I know you sometimes think that I don't do those things, but I have.
No. I don't think so, and I don't think the audience thinks that our friend Alexis running around wringing chicken's neck and then watch the chicken jump all around and all that kind of stuff. But you've done that before.
I have.
But the thing about it, back to what you were talking about, is that caring for a loved one is meant to be enjoyed, not endured.
Oh.
And I think the essence of when it's all said and done, that's part of it too. Because someone is going to sit in the front seat of the family car. That's usually the person who paid the bills or signed their name to it. And someone's going to sit on the front pews of the church. And someone is going to be sitting in that front row at the cemetery when they bury them. And the mortician usually talks to the person who's paying the bill. And I've seen families have challenges over, this person wants this for mama. They want the most expensive coffin, and nothing's too good for my mama, but you ain't got a pot to piss in and a window to throw it out. But nothing's too good for your mother, and I agree, but who's going to pick up the tab?
Yeah, this is a touchy subject. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So my thinking about this, though, is, Pastor Odell, how can we help that scenario not happen? Because then, funerals and deaths, it's like weddings. Sometimes they bring out the
Best and the worst.
Yes.
Yes, and I think...
And what can we do to prevent that? Like, I'm all about, let's be responsible till the end.
Right,
Let's see what we
right,
can do
right.
till the end.
You're absolutely right. However, whatever's there is there.
Yeah.
If the family is dysfunctional and haven't been communicating on certain levels, this is not going to change it. If anything, it gives an opportunity to be at a crossroads to decide, okay, are we going to behave and get through mama's funeral? Or are we going to show our behinds like we usually do? Because in a lot of cases, those unresolved issues, they just come surfacing, and emotions is so hard to control emotions And financially, it's like, well, I'm not going to pay for the funeral because I've been the caregiver and you haven't done da-da-da. So it's stuff. And you said, well, we all do it equally. Well, equal is not equal because some people can't afford it.
Right, right.
What do you do when you can't afford? You know, I preach a sermon quite often that says, why is it so expensive to be poor? Let me say that again. Why is it so expensive to be poor? Because if you don't have the money to pay for the funeral, then yeah, you can get the funeral on layaway, you can get it on credit, but then what's the interest rate on
That's
the
so
funeral?
true.
So
That's
it's so much to it, and the mortician knows that if they don't get all their money up front, they're not gonna get their money. They know that. They're not new to the game. They're true to the game.
Okay, so hold that thought for just a minute.
Which one?
The whole, like, we got to get people to pay for things. We got to go back. We had two sentences. We both said that they could use us as an excuse to bring the topic up.
I said they could use the show where they saw the good-looking black guy, right?
Yes.
And you said what?
I don't remember. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm a caregiver. I don't remember. So maybe the third thing is, hey, I was thinking about, hey, how about this? Hey, I was kind of coming at this thought like a gift to you. Like I was thinking about what I could do to make you happy or help me with.
Okay.
We can't be blunt, evidently. We can't come in and say, hey, I'm going to die and this is what I want you to have happen.
Okay.
Right?
So,
right? This is.
So the scenario is mama's cooking in the kitchen and mama put down the saucepan and walk in and say, hey guys, how are we going to pay for my funeral? Because I'm going to die one day. That's what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, that's what's happening, right? I mean,
yeah.
So do you, instead of saying that, do you say, I was reading in the newspaper. Do people still read the paper? Not all the time. I was looking on the internet.
Older people do. Older people do.
I was looking on the internet.
Yes.
And
I'm old.
Okay. Well, I'm almost there.
But I'm a senior citizen.
Yes, you are. You get a discount now.
I get a discount. I get a discount at IHOP. You know, on the breakfast special. Give me the senior menu, please.
That's right. But you have to probably go between 4:30 and 6.
I don't know. I'm trying to lose a pound or two. I've said that. The audience know I've been trying to lose a pound or two for a minute.
Okay. So our last sentence is going to be something like, hey, I have a friend at work who recently lost a mom.
There you go. Okay. All right.
And it was a nightmare for them. It was a nightmare for them financially. Mm-hmm. It was a nightmare for them, like family dynamic wise.
Uh-huh.
And it was a nightmare trying to honor what they think she wanted to do because she had never talked about it. Hey, Dad, can we talk about that?
That reminds me of this commercial you see on TV where they said that the guy's sitting there eating a cookie and he says, hey, you know, Shirley, yeah. Well, Shirley just died. And it's like, okay, Shirley just died. And then the wife says, did she have life insurance? And it's like, well, then you start getting into the term, whole life, and all those different parts of life insurances and everything. And it's like, well, you can get life insurance for a little as. So we look like we're going to do a commercial on life insurance?
No, I don't want to do. I want it to be a commercial on. It's a gift if we have this conversation. It's a gift within our family if we try to communicate about what I want to have happen, and then I'm going to help pay for whatever I want to have happen.
Isn't that considered a will?
No, that's legal. Let's not bring that subject into this right now.
Okay, all right. So we're going on people on the honor system.
Well, let's start there, sure.
The honor system that everybody in the family is going to be honorable around paying for the funeral. And when it's all said and done, we got folks arguing about what's going to be there at the repast. You know, usually black folks with repast, you know what the repast is, right?
We're not going to talk about that right now.
No.
Subject.
It's not subject.
We need to address our things.
Because you're talking about the honorable. Repast is chicken, fried or baked. That's going to be an argument. Green beans, macaroni and cheese, sweet tea, and a roll. And then Uncle Bobo wants 3 pieces of chicken, and somebody else wants some chicken to go. So I'm just saying, honorable, people fighting over the chicken.
I'm just saying you're not talking about the 3 things on our whiteboard right here.
I'm
We
telling
got
you
to
what
come
I've
back to
seen.
this.
Okay, let's go to let's
No.
go.
I'm guessing we had our topics.
Yes.
We probably need to close.
Yes.
And say that we're going to revisit perhaps what we serve at the repast on our next show. How does that
I
sound?
want 3 pieces of chicken.
Well, that might be 2 more than I get, so that's not okay.
And that's the essence of this whole thing around paying for the
Caregiving.
funeral and caregiving, because it's not okay. It's not fair. 3 pieces of chicken versus 1 piece of chicken. Who's paying for mama's funeral? Who has more money? Well, wait a minute, Alexis, you make a whole lot more money than me. Wait a minute, Alexis, you got the big time corporate job, and you said you couldn't take away from your job to take care of mom for the last 3 or 4 years, so I took care of her, so I've already paid at the office. So now you got to come in and pay for the funeral because you wasn't here to empty the bedpan, excuse me.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so I'm going to close this out.
Okay.
And what I'm going to say is for our next show, we're going to get a really big whiteboard so that we can talk about family dynamics, because you seem to be an expert right today on that topic of family dynamics.
Because it's not fair. It's not fair. Family dynamics is not fair. And you know, as a caregiver, it's never going to be fair.
Okay.
I need 3 pieces of chicken, 1 baked, 2 fried, and I want the drumstick and the wing.
What if I'm a vegetarian, Pastor Odell? Are we still going to have chicken?
You can be a vegetarian all you want. At a Southern black funeral, we're going to have chicken. Now, I don't know about that vegetarian stuff. We may have a salad, but we got green beans. Is macaroni and cheese a vegetable?
But see, this is a great example of their opinions.
Yes.
And when people pass, we have to navigate opinions.
And emotions.
Oh my gosh. And it can be so hard.
But people have an opinion about who's going to pick up the bill.
Oh, always.
And people have emotions about what's fair when it comes to money. Because a lot of times I've witnessed that people bring different things as far as resources. Someone may have had more time. Someone have been in a position where they weren't married, so maybe they could take time from a family and live with mom or live with daddy, versus somebody else was sitting there taking care of their children or their grandchildren. So how is it fair? Is it equal gifts or equal sacrifices?
I think that's a great topic for another session. I think that's a lot to get into.
Hey, do they have veggie? I know they have veggie hamburgers. Do they have veggie fried chicken?
They do. Plant-based chicken.
We're not doing any plant-based at the repast. We're having chicken. It probably could be Kentucky Fried Chicken, but we're going to have chicken. We're going to have green beans, macaroni and cheese. We're having a roll, and we're going to have sweet tea. We might can have some water, but that's how we do it in the South.
Okay. Well, until next time. Thanks for joining us today on Caregiver Convo.